Welcome to Calm Mind English. There are seasons when you are trying, but your life still looks almost the same. You wake up, do what you can, avoid what used to pull you down, and still, nothing feels big enough to call progress. This can be confusing because change is supposed to feel clear. You expect a new version of yourself to appear in a way you can measure. But many times, the first part of change is quiet, private, and easy to miss. You may be changing in the way you respond to stress. You may be changing in the way you return to your routine. After a difficult day, you may be changing in the small space between an old impulse and a new choice. From the outside, your day may look ordinary. You go to work, study, cook, clean, answer messages, and lie down at night with the same problems still waiting around you. The room has not changed much. The numbers may not look different. The people around you may not notice anything. So your mind starts to ask a painful question. If I am really changing, why does my life still look like this? This question can feel heavy because it makes your effort seem invisible. It makes every small action feel weak. It makes you wonder whether you are only imagining progress, because you want to believe you are not standing still. But invisible progress is still progress. It only means the result has not reached the surface yet. Think about someone trying to become calmer. At first, they may still feel anxious. They may still overthink a message. They may still replay a conversation before sleep. From the outside, nothing looks different. But one day, they stop themselves before sending a defensive reply. Another day, they notice their worry earlier than before. Later, they recover from a bad mood in 2 hours instead of 2 days. These changes are not loud. They do not create a dramatic moment. But they are signs that the inner system is slowly learning a new way to live. The problem is that the mind often wants visible proof too early. It wants the clean room, the finished project, the better body, the new job, the stronger confidence, the peaceful relationship. It wants change to show itself like a clear before and after picture. Real change usually does not begin that way. It begins in the small decisions that happen when no one is watching. It begins when you do one small thing even though you do not feel inspired. It begins when you pause before repeating the same mistake. It begins when you choose rest instead of scrolling for another hour. Or when you admit that you are tired instead of pretending you are fine. These moments may feel too small to count, but they are the foundation of everything that later becomes visible. A person may spend weeks building a better routine and still feel messy. They may eat a little better, sleep a little earlier, or walk for 10 minutes after dinner. But the mirror may not show anything yet. Their energy may still rise and fall. Their mood may still be unstable. Then the mind becomes impatient. It says, "This is not working." It says, "Nothing has changed." It says, "Maybe you are the same person after all." This is where many people lose their progress. Not because the progress was fake, but because it was too early to see. The first stage of change often feels like disappointment. You are doing more than before, but receiving less proof than you expected. You are paying attention, choosing better, and trying again. But the reward has not arrived in a way your eyes can recognize. That does not mean the work is empty. It means the change is still gathering strength. Imagine cleaning a very crowded room. For a while, it may look worse. You take things out of drawers. You move old boxes. You find dust behind furniture. Anyone walking in at that moment might think you are making a bigger mess. But the room is not getting worse. It is being reorganized. The same thing can happen inside your mind. When you start changing, you may notice your habits more clearly. You may see your avoidance, your fear, your anger, your tiredness, and your need for approval. This can feel discouraging because you become more aware of what still needs work. But awareness is not failure. Awareness is often the first visible sign of inner movement. Before change, you may repeat a pattern without noticing it. During change, you still repeat it sometimes, but now you see it. Later, you see it earlier. Later still, you choose something different before it takes over. That is a real sequence. It is slow, but it is real. The reason your progress feels invisible is not always because nothing is happening. Sometimes it feels invisible because your standards are looking only for the final result. You may be looking for confidence, but the real progress is that you spoke one sentence more than usual. You may be looking for discipline, but the real progress is that you returned after missing a day. You may be looking for peace, but the real progress is that you recognized your tension before it, controlled your whole evening. Progress often hides inside details. It hides in the moment you do not quit after one mistake. It hides in the moment you tell the truth to yourself a little sooner. It hides in the moment you choose a small next step instead of waiting for a perfect reset. These details do not always feel powerful, but they slowly change your identity. A person does not become different only because one big event happens. A person becomes different because the same small choice is repeated enough times that it becomes familiar. At first, the new choice feels strange. It may even feel weak. You may choose the better action and still not feel better immediately. You may act with patience and still feel frustrated inside. You may rest properly and still wake up tired. This is normal. The body and mind need time to trust a new pattern. Old patterns have history. They have been practiced many times. They feel natural because they are familiar, not because they are healthy. A new pattern may be better for you, but it will not always feel natural at the beginning. So there is a strange period where the old life no longer fits. But the new life does not fully feel like yours yet. That period can feel empty. You are no longer completely who you were, but you cannot yet see who you are becoming. This is the invisible middle. The invisible middle is where many people feel alone. They are not at the starting point anymore, but they are not at the finish line either. They are carrying effort without applause. They are making choices without a clear reward. In that space, the mind can become harsh. It may say you should be further along. It may compare your quiet progress with someone else's visible result. It may ignore everything you have done because the outside picture still looks unfinished. But the outside picture is not the only truth. There is also the truth of how often you came back. There is the truth of what you did when your mood was low. There is the truth of how you handled a day that would have broken you before. These things matter because they show that change is not only about reaching a new place. It is also about becoming someone who can keep walking when the road does not give quick feedback. Tonight, if your progress feels invisible, you do not need to force yourself to feel proud. You do not need to pretend everything is clear. You can simply look more honestly at the small evidence that your mind may be dismissing. Maybe you did not finish everything, but you started sooner than before. Maybe you still felt fear, but you did not let it decide everything. Maybe you had a hard day, but you did not completely abandon yourself. That is not nothing. It is easy to respect change when it looks beautiful. It is harder to respect change when it looks like an ordinary day, a small choice, and a tired person trying again. But this is where many real changes begin. They begin before anyone can see them. They begin before the results arrive. They begin in the quiet place where you are learning to live differently. One small moment at a time. There is a reason results often appear late. Most meaningful change begins below the level of appearance. When people think about progress, they usually imagine something clear. A cleaner home, a better body, a calmer mind, a stronger career, a relationship that feels easier. These are visible outcomes, and because they are visible, the mind treats them as proof. But visible outcomes are usually the last part of the process. Before a person becomes more organized, they first become more aware of what drains them. Before they become confident, they first begin to notice where they hide. Before they become disciplined, They first learn how often their energy disappears during the day. This early work does not always look impressive. Sometimes it only looks like noticing. A person may sit at their desk in the morning with a cup of coffee and write 3 things they need to do. It may not change their whole life that day. The list may still feel too long. They may still feel behind, but something small has changed. Instead of letting the day attack them from every direction, they have created one quiet place to begin. This is how change often starts. It does not remove the whole problem. It gives the mind a smaller doorway. Results appear late, because the nervous system does not transform the moment we understand something. Understanding can happen quickly, but trust takes time. The body needs repeated proof that a new way is safe. For example, someone may decide to stop reacting so quickly when they feel criticized. They understand the idea. They know that reacting fast often makes things worse. But the next time someone speaks sharply, their chest still tightens. Their face still gets warm. Their old defense still rises. This does not mean they failed. It means their body is practicing a new response. While the old response is still familiar, one day, they may still feel the heat in their chest, but they wait for a few seconds before speaking. Another day, they ask a question instead of attacking back. Later, they leave the room for a minute and return with a clearer mind. The visible result may look small, but inside, a new pathway is being built. The mind often misses this because it looks for emotion as proof. It thinks, if I am changing, I should feel different. I should feel calm. I should feel motivated. I should feel strong. But feelings are not always the first thing to change. Sometimes behavior changes first. Sometimes awareness changes first. Sometimes recovery changes first. You may still feel anxious, but recover faster. You may still feel lazy, but begin sooner. You may still feel insecure, but speak anyway. You may still feel tired, but stop making your tiredness worse. These are real changes, even when your emotional weather has not fully cleared. A quiet morning routine can show this clearly. Imagine a person who used to wake up and immediately reach for their phone. Before they even knew what day it was, their mind was filled with messages, news, other people's lives, and small pieces of pressure. Then they decide to change one thing. For the first 10 minutes, they do not touch the phone. They wash their face, drink water, and open the window. Nothing dramatic happens. Their life is not suddenly fixed. The same bills exist. The same work is waiting. The same doubts may still be there. But the first input of the day has changed. Over time, this matters. The brain begins to learn that the morning does not have to begin with noise. The body learns that there can be a small space before reaction. The mind learns that it can choose what enters first. At first, this may feel too simple. The person may think, how can 10 quiet minutes matter when my whole life feels complicated? But many complicated lives are not changed by one perfect plan. They are changed by small repeated spaces where the old pattern does not fully take over. Results appear late because small changes need repetition before they become visible. One workout does not show much. One honest conversation does not heal a relationship. One focused hour does not build a career. One calm response does not erase years of reactivity. But repetition changes the structure underneath. It changes what feels normal. It changes what your mind expects from you. It changes the point at which you give up. It changes how quickly you return. This is why the early stage can feel unfair. You are giving effort, but the result still belongs to the future. You are paying now for something that has not arrived yet. In this stage, many people stop because they think the lack of visible result means the method is not working. But sometimes the method is working exactly where it needs to work first. Inside your attention, your tolerance, your timing, and your ability to return. These are not small things. Attention is the beginning of self-direction. When you can notice what is happening inside you, You are no longer completely trapped inside the pattern. Tolerance allows you to stay with discomfort without running back to the old escape. You can feel boredom without immediately numbing it. You can feel stress without turning it into damage. You can feel uncertainty without destroying your own progress. Timing is the space between impulse and action. A person who gains 3 seconds before reacting has gained more than they may realize. In those 3 seconds, a different future can enter. The ability to return may be the most important skill of all. Real life interrupts every plan. People get sick. Work becomes heavy. Children need attention. Sleep gets broken. Money becomes tight. Emotions rise. A perfect routine is fragile. A returnable routine is strong. If you are changing, one of the clearest signs may not be that you never fall away. It may be that you come back with less shame and less delay. This is why results appear late. The outside result waits for the inside system to become stable enough to carry it. A person can force a result for a short time. They can push hard for 2 weeks, clean everything, exercise intensely, study all night, or act calm while hiding pressure inside. But if the inner system has not changed, the result may collapse when stress returns. Slow progress feels invisible because it is building capacity, not only appearance. Capacity means you can hold more without losing yourself. You can handle a difficult day and still do one useful thing. You can feel disappointed and still keep your direction. You can make a mistake and still remain connected to your next step. This kind of progress is not easy to photograph, but it changes the quality of your life. The world often rewards visible change. People notice weight loss, promotion, money, skill, confidence, productivity, and finished work. But hidden change is what makes visible change sustainable. Hidden change is the person who no longer quits after one bad day. Hidden change is the person who can be honest without attacking themselves. Hidden change is the person who can slow down before making the same choice that used to hurt them. These are quiet forms of strength. When results are late, it helps to stop asking only, what has changed outside? A better question is, what is becoming easier to notice, easier to choose, or easier to recover from? Maybe the result has not arrived, but your relationship with the process may already be changing. You may complain less before starting. You may need less drama to take action. You may have fewer extreme resets. You may no longer wait for a perfect mood. These things show that the roots are moving. A tree does not look like it is growing when the roots are spreading underground. To a person standing above the soil, nothing seems to happen. But without that hidden growth, the tree cannot stand later. Your progress may be in a root stage. This means it needs patience, but not passive patience. It needs patient repetition. It needs small actions that are simple enough to continue. It needs a way of measuring that does not depend only on visible results. Because when the roots are ignored, people pull them up too early to check if they are growing. They stop the habit before it has a chance to become natural. They quit the practice before the mind has learned trust. They change the plan again and again, not because the plan is wrong, but because the proof is late. There is a quiet discipline in allowing change to be unfinished. You do not have to call a small step a miracle. You do not have to exaggerate it. You only have to stop dismissing it. If today you repeated one useful action, that matters. If you caught one old reaction earlier, that matters. If you return to your direction after a difficult mood, that matters. The result may still be late, but the structure is forming. And when the structure becomes strong enough, the visible result often appears more naturally than you expected. Not because one day was magical, but because many quiet days were not wasted. There is a moment in slow progress when the mind begins to send a quitting signal. It may not sound dramatic. It may not appear as one clear decision. It can begin as a quiet heaviness after another ordinary day. You look at what you have been doing. You remember the effort. Then you look at the result, and it does not feel big enough. Something inside you says, maybe this is pointless. This is one of the most dangerous moments in change, because the signal can feel logical. You may think you are being realistic. You may tell yourself that you tried and it did not work. You may say that other people change faster, that your situation is different, that your effort is too small to matter. Sometimes the mind is not trying to destroy you. It is trying to protect you from disappointment. If hope feels painful, quitting can feel like relief. If effort feels unrewarded, returning to old habits can feel familiar. If progress is hard to see, the mind may choose the comfort of what it already knows. This often happens after comparison. Imagine someone sitting on the edge of their bed at night, tired from the day. They open their phone for a few minutes and see someone else's finished result. A clean home, a confident face, a new achievement, a life that seems to be moving forward. In that moment, their own progress becomes smaller in their eyes. They do not see the full story of the other person. They only see the visible part. But they compare that visible part with their own unfinished middle. This comparison is unfair, but it feels convincing. The mind says, look at them. They are already there. You are still here. Then the old feeling returns. The feeling of being behind. The feeling of being slow. The feeling that maybe your effort is not enough. This is where many people make a quiet agreement with giving up. They do not always stop everything at once. They just loosen their attention. They skip the small action today. Then tomorrow feels easier to skip. The routine becomes optional. The promise becomes blurry. A week later, they may say, I knew I could not do it. But the truth is more specific. They did not fail because they were incapable. They lost the process at the moment. When the mind confused delayed proof with final failure. Delayed proof is not final failure. This sentence is simple, but it matters. A result that has not appeared, yet is not the same as a result that will never appear. The mind struggles with this because it wants quick certainty. It would rather know that something is impossible than continue in uncertainty. Waiting without proof requires emotional strength. When you are tired, uncertainty becomes heavier. The brain begins to search for shortcuts. It may say, just stop caring. Just go back. Just distract yourself. Just do what feels easy tonight. Sometimes that voice sounds like self-care, but it is really avoidance wearing a softer face. Real care restores you so you can continue. Avoidance numbs you so you do not have to feel the pressure of continuing. The difference is not always obvious. Rest may look like closing the laptop and sleeping earlier. Avoidance may look like staying awake for 3 more hours. Because you do not want to face tomorrow. Rest may feel quiet afterward. Avoidance often leaves a dull regret. When progress feels invisible, the mind may try to escape into old patterns because old patterns require less trust. They are known. Even if they hurt you, they feel predictable. Changing asks you to believe in something that has not fully shown itself yet. This is why the quitting signal often comes right before a stronger stage of progress. Not always, but often. The mind feels the discomfort of moving away from the old identity. But the new identity has not become comfortable yet. A person trying to become more disciplined may reach a point where the routine feels boring. It is no longer new. The early motivation is gone. The result is still small. This is when the mind says, maybe I should start something else. But sometimes the need to start something else is only the discomfort of staying long enough. A person trying to heal emotionally may reach a point where they notice more pain than before. They may think they're getting worse, but in reality, they are becoming aware of what they used to avoid. A person trying to build confidence may feel more awkward at first, because they are stepping into situations they used to escape. The awkwardness is not proof that they are failing. It is proof that they are practicing. The quitting signal often mislabels discomfort. It calls boredom a lack of purpose. It calls slow growth a lack of progress. It calls fear a warning to stop. It calls fatigue proof that you are weak. But emotions are not always accurate instructions. They are information, not final authority. If you feel like quitting, it may be useful to ask what kind of quitting this is. Are you quitting because the path is truly wrong? Or because the result is not visible yet? Are you quitting because you need a better method? Or because the old pattern is asking to return? Are you quitting because you're exhausted? Or because comparison made your real progress feel small? These questions create space. They slow the reaction. You do not need to force yourself forward with pressure. Pressure can work for a short time, but it often creates another cycle of collapse. Instead, you can make the next step smaller and more honest. When the mind says, "This is pointless," do one piece of evidence-based action. Not a huge reset. Not a new identity speech. Just one small continuation. Write one line. Wash one dish. Walk for 5 minutes. Study one page. Send one message. Prepare one thing for tomorrow. This is not about pretending the small action fixes everything. It is about keeping the connection alive. A process dies when you fully disconnect from it. A small action keeps a thin thread between you and the direction you chose. Some days, that thread is enough. People often think discipline means pushing with the same strength every day. But real discipline changes size. On strong days, it can be larger. On tired days, it becomes smaller so it can survive. This matters because the quitting signal is strongest when the standard is too large for your current energy. If your mind believes the only valid action is a perfect action, then tired days will look like failure. But if your mind understands that a small action can protect the pattern, then tired days can still belong to progress. You may not move far on those days, but you do not move back as much as before. That is progress. Another way to handle the quitting signal is to stop making decisions about your whole life at your lowest emotional point. A tired evening is not always the right place to judge your future. A disappointed mood is not always a clear advisor. A comparison-filled mind is not a fair judge. Many people make permanent conclusions from temporary states. They feel bad for one night and decide nothing is working. They miss one day and decide they have no discipline. They see someone ahead and decide they are behind forever. These conclusions feel powerful because they are emotional. But emotional intensity is not the same as truth. When the quitting signal comes, reduce the time frame. Instead of asking, "Can I do this for the rest of my life?" ask, "What is the next small thing I can do today?" Instead of asking, "Am I successful yet?" ask, "Did I stay closer to the direction than I would have before?" This brings the mind back from a frightening future into a usable present. The present is where change can actually happen. You cannot act inside next year. You cannot repair yesterday directly. You can only choose the next small movement here. And sometimes the most important movement is not dramatic. It is simply not abandoning the process during a low moment. There is a quiet strength in continuing without strong feelings. Anyone can feel motivated when proof is visible. It takes a different kind of steadiness to continue when progress is still hidden. This steadiness is built slowly, often through ordinary days that do not feel important at the time. When you look back later, you may realize that the turning point was not the day you felt strong. It was the day you felt unsure and still did one small thing. That day taught your mind something. It taught your mind that doubt does not have to become a stop sign. It taught your body that discomfort can be carried. It taught your future self that you can return. So when the quitting signal appears, do not treat it as proof. Treat it as a moment that needs care, reduction, and one clear next action. You may need rest. You may need a smaller plan. You may need to stop comparing. You may need to sleep before making any big conclusion. But you do not need to erase your progress just because your mind cannot see it tonight. Slow change often asks you to protect the process before the process can reward you. This protection is not loud. It is a quiet decision to keep the thread connected. And sometimes, that quiet decision is the exact place where invisible progress becomes stronger. One of the most useful skills in slow change is learning how to see small evidence. Without evidence, the mind becomes emotional and vague. It says things like nothing is working, I am the same, I never change, and I always go back. These sentences feel true when you are tired, but they are often too general to be fair. Small evidence brings the mind back to reality. It does not ask you to exaggerate your progress. It does not ask you to call everything a victory. It simply asks you to notice what is different, even if the difference is quiet. Imagine a notebook on a desk at the end of the day. The room is calm. The light is soft. A person sits down for 2 minutes, not to judge their whole life, but to record one thing that was different today. Maybe they write, I wanted to avoid the task, but I opened the document. Maybe they write, I felt anxious, but I did not check my phone for reassurance again and again. Maybe they write, I was upset, but I answered more slowly than before. These sentences are small, but they are evidence. Evidence is important because memory is not always neutral. When you feel discouraged, your mind collects proof that you are failing. It remembers what you did not finish. It remembers the mistake. It remembers the moment you felt weak. It may ignore the fact that you returned faster than before. It may ignore the fact that you paused before reacting. It may ignore the fact that you stopped a bad pattern halfway, instead of letting it take the whole day. This is why slow progress needs a better way of seeing. You cannot depend only on mood to measure change. Mood changes with sleep, food, stress, weather, money, messages, and the tone of one conversation. If mood becomes your only judge, your progress will look different every few hours. A written record gives you something steadier. It does not have to be long. In fact, it should be simple enough that you can do it when you are tired. One line can be enough. Today, I returned. Today, I noticed earlier. Today, I made the action smaller and still did it. Today, I recovered before the whole evening was gone. These are not dramatic records, but over time, they show a pattern your emotions may not notice. The goal is not to create a perfect diary. The goal is to train attention. When you train attention, you begin to see progress in places you used to dismiss. You start to notice recovery time. Before, one bad comment may have ruined your entire day. Now, it still hurts, but you recover after an hour. That is change. You start to notice reaction time. Before, you may have answered immediately from anger. Now, you feel the anger, but there is a small pause. That pause is change. You start to notice return time. Before, missing one day meant losing the whole week. Now, you miss one day and return the next morning. That return is change. These forms of progress are quiet, but they are some of the most important. Many people measure only output. How much did I finish? How much did I earn? How much did I lose? How much did I achieve? Output matters, but it is not the whole story. There is also internal stability. Internal stability means you are becoming less easily pulled away from yourself. You may still have difficult emotions, but they do not control as much territory as before. You may still struggle, but the struggle does not erase your direction as quickly. This kind of change often appears first in small reductions. A little less panic, a little less delay, a little less self-attack, a little less need to escape, a little less time lost after a mistake. The word less may not sound exciting, but it can be powerful. Many lives improve not only because something huge is added, but because something harmful slowly becomes weaker. A quieter reaction can change a relationship. A shorter spiral can protect a day. A smaller delay can save a routine. A little less shame can make it easier to begin again. This is the structure of slow change. Slow change is not always a straight line upward. It is more like a pattern becoming less extreme. The lows may still come, but they may not last as long. The mistakes may still happen, but they may not spread as far. The fear may still visit, but it may not make every decision. At first, this can be hard to respect because it does not look like a clean transformation. But real life is rarely clean. People change while still working, parenting, studying, paying bills, answering messages, and carrying old memories. They change inside normal days, not inside perfect conditions. This means your evidence must come from normal days too. Do not wait for a perfect day to decide that you are progressing. Look at the difficult day. Look at the tired day. Look at the day when your mood was low and ask, did I handle one part of this differently than before? That question is practical. It does not deny the hard part. It does not force positivity. It only looks for a specific difference. Maybe you still procrastinated, but you stopped after 30 minutes instead of 3 hours. Maybe you still overthought, but you did not ask 5 people for reassurance. Maybe you still felt behind, but you completed one small task instead of freezing completely. Maybe you still got angry, but you repaired the conversation sooner. This is evidence. Another useful way to see progress is to compare yourself with your previous pattern, not with your ideal self. Your ideal self is often too far away to be a fair measurement. It may be calm, productive, confident, organized, patient, healthy, and clear every day. Compared with that image, almost any real day will look disappointing. But your previous pattern gives a more honest measurement. How would the old version of you have handled this same day? How long would the old spiral have lasted? What would the old reaction have created? What would the old habit have chosen automatically? If today was even slightly different, that matters. The difference may be small, but small differences repeated over time become a new direction. This is how slow change works. It does not always remove the old pattern immediately. It weakens the pattern through repeated interruption. Each time you notice earlier, the pattern loses a little power. Each time you return sooner, the pattern loses a little control. Each time you choose one small action instead of complete avoidance, the pattern becomes less absolute. This is why small evidence should be taken seriously. It shows where the old pattern is no longer total. You are not looking for proof that you have become perfect. You are looking for proof that the old pattern is no longer running everything. That is a realistic sign of change. There is also a physical side to this. The brain learns through repetition. A new response becomes stronger when it is used again and again in real situations. At first, it may feel unnatural because the old response has more history. But every small interruption teaches the brain that another path exists. This is why one calm response matters. This is why one return morning matters. This is why one honest note in a notebook matters. These actions are not only symbolic, they are practice. And practice does not always feel meaningful while it is happening. A musician repeats simple scales. An athlete repeats basic movements. A child learning to write repeats the same letters many times. From the outside, repetition can look boring. Inside, the system is being trained. Your emotional life works in a similar way. You repeat patience in small moments. You repeat honesty in small notes. You repeat courage in small conversations. You repeat discipline in small actions that are not impressive enough to post anywhere. Then, slowly, your mind begins to believe you are becoming someone who returns. This belief is not built by forcing confidence. It is built by collected evidence. Every time you keep a small promise, you add evidence. Every time you recover from a hard moment, you add evidence. Every time you choose a smaller version of the right action instead of quitting completely, you add evidence. Over time, this evidence becomes stronger than the old story that says you never change. The old story may still speak sometimes. It may still appear on tired nights. But now you have something to answer with. Not a motivational phrase. Not a fantasy. A record. You can say, that is not fully true. I have proof. I returned last Monday. I paused yesterday. I finished the small task today. I recovered faster this week. I did not repeat the whole pattern. This is how you protect slow progress from emotional forgetting. Because that is what often happens. You do not lose progress because it was not real. You lose sight of it because your mind forgets the small evidence when the final result has not arrived. So make the evidence visible. Write it down. Say it clearly. Keep the measurement small. Notice recovery, timing, return, and reduced damage. These are the early signs that change is taking shape. You do not need to measure your whole life tonight. You only need to notice one honest sign that the old pattern did not have complete control today. A quiet notebook on a desk may not look powerful, but it can hold the proof your tired mind keeps losing. And that proof can help you continue long enough for invisible progress to become visible. One small action for tonight is simple. Write one sentence about what was different today. That sentence may be small, but it teaches the mind where to look. Slow change becomes easier to trust when you stop waiting only for the final result and start noticing the small signs that you are already moving.